Hello guys and God bless. Hope everybody's doing well. So this video is going to be on orbs. And what this video is designed to do is just give you information to to put some things in your tool belt, to put some things in the back of your mind when looking, studying, learning about what's going on around us. Now, I'm doing this video in conjunction with some missing people. What I want to say right off the bat is not every missing persons case, not every unsolved missing persons case, let alone any missing persons case, has orb type phenomena attached to it. It happens in some cases, yes. Does it happen in all? No. There is no variable that that concludes that orbs are around every unsolved missing persons case. They are a variable that is present in some cases. They're also a variable that's present in some cases involving cryptids. I'm not going to get into too much of that here. I've done that in Bigfoot videos, and also if you want to look at the video Satan's Garden or Satan's Ranch, I believe it's what it's called, on my YouTube channel, you can check that out. I talk about it there a little bit. But they are present during these things. And it's a noteworthy thing that we should look at. And what does the Bible say about it? And what's the history say about it? What's the history behind these orbs? What is the phenomena that has been encountered with these things? So orbs come in all shapes and sizes. They range from cigar shape to softball shape to beach balls to even bigger. Different colors. You'll see blue, orange, red. Every color under the sun that you can imagine. So there is no specific one type of orb. They come in all different shapes and sizes. Like I just said, you can't pinpoint all missing persons cases that go unsolved that orbs are there at that time. It's not true. And I want to make that clear because I'm not advocating that, well, he says every missing persons case has an orb involved. That's not what I'm saying whatsoever. There is cases, though, that do surround that. And they should be paid attention to because they are some sort of different supernatural phenomena. So understand orbs are seen with the naked eye, and they're in the visible light spectrum. Just so you know, there's a whole nother invisible light spectrum called infrared light. So what we see with our eyes falls into our kind of reality, so to speak. But I want you to be aware of infrared light, which is outside of our naked eye spectrum that we do not see. I'm just making note of it here so that you're aware that just everything that we see is not reality. There is a reality beyond our vision. And, you need to just be aware of that. Can something be cloaked in IR light? Absolutely. So these orbs do have an intelligence factor. That's another thing that we need to pay attention to. So is there orbs in the IR spectrum that we don't see? I guess is what I'm getting at. So are there orbs here in this IR hidden light spectrum that we don't see? I would conclude that there probably is. But anyway, it's something that you should be aware of. Okay, that there is a spectrum of light that's not visible to the naked eye. You'll see soldiers wearing night vision goggles, and they have what they call IR floods or IR signals that they can do. They can put night vision on, turn IR light on, and it's like a little flashlight that you don't even see with the naked eye. Barely can see it with the naked eye. Anyway, so that is the IR point of view. So there's different types of names for these orbs, and they go back to different eras, different times, different names. So the Foo Fighters is obviously the first one. Most of us have heard of this. The Foo Fighters were supposedly lights that were harassing aircraft, our Allied pilots during World War II. They described them as UFOs. They thought they were probably the enemy, some sort of enemy new weapon. So that was probably the first thing that people recognized as the Foo Fighter. And they were fast-moving, round glowing objects that followed their aircraft. They described as fiery, glowing red, white, and orange, and sometimes they resembled Christmas tree lights. And they seemed to toy with the aircraft, making wild turns simply before vanishing. They behaved like they were under intelligent control. Sometimes they were called kraut fireballs. All right. Time magazine carried the story entitled Food Fire, which reported that the balls of fire were following these things. Balls of fire keeps going on. Balls of fire just hung in the sky, and this is obviously these orbs. This goes way back to World War II. We have not seen any change in what they're really looking like. Globe glowing green, half the size of a full moon as it appeared to us. It was rapid. Two fog lights flying at high speed that could change rapidly in directions. So anyway, this is the first noted thing that you really come across when looking for orbs is Foo Fighters. Then you have St. Elmo's Fire, which is a little different. St. Elmo's Fire is in conjunction with bad weather usually, and thunderstorms, and it talks about like it's a plasma or some sort of corona discharge in the electric field, and it appears that it attaches to ships during thunderstorms, and was regarded by sailors with the religious awe of a glowing ball of light. Kind of different, but maybe similar. So here's a picture of St. Elmo's Fire here, and it kind of shows how it guides the mast of the ship. So again, is this the same thing? We don't know exactly for sure, but I would be interested to know if this can be replicated. What we're going to talk about next is ball lightning, and that cannot be replicated in a scientific matter. So anyway, I thought this was just interesting. We talked about weather in our last video and how it plays an effect. Also here we have a weather connection with balls of light. So let's continue on. Here's a depiction of ball lightning from Wikipedia. And again, that looks like our orb or some sort of orb material. Ball lightning described as luminescent spherical objects that can vary from pea size to several meters in diameter. First thing it says here is it's unexplained phenomena. Ball lightning, unexplained. Associated with the thunderstorms, again, bad weather. So again, we have this weather connection to this light. And of course, we know lightning and there's differences, but I think you can understand where I'm coming from. Describe balls that eventually explode and leave behind, guess what? An odor of sulfur. Of course, sulfur is reminiscent of hell, fire, brimstone, sulfur, the odor of sulfur, which is like a rotten egg. What's interesting is a lot of cryptids will, and not all cases, again, this isn't every single case, but some cases involving cryptids will involve an odor of sulfur or rotten eggs or a stench that's just out of control. I remember reading one story of an Indian lady giving guidance to a friend of hers that had a cryptid problem on her farm, and she said, put sulfur around your farm. That keeps them away. Does that allude to some sort of judgment? I don't know, but it's definitely interesting. So anyway, that's ball lightning. So we have brimstone, sulfur, burning stone. So we have the ball of light again. So just another connection here, guys. That's all I'm trying to show is some connections. This is an interesting tidbit of information here. The Great Thunderstorm of Woodcombe in the Moor. Basically, it's about this church in Devon, England. This actually has a lot of... I remember reading about this as a kid, the Devonshire area. But anyway, this church in this England, 4 people died, 60 were injured when a severe storm and a ball of fire was described as striking the entire church, nearly destroying it. Large stones from the church walls were hurled to the ground through the wooden beams. The ball of fire allegedly smashed the pews and many windows and filled the church with a foul, sulfurous odor and dark, thick smoke. Very interesting right here. As you'll see when we look at Abraham, it talks about a thick smoke and darkness. But this ball of fire reportedly divided into 2 segments, one exiting through the window and smashing it open, the other disappearing somewhere inside the church. And then because of the fire and sulfuric smell, contemporaries explain that the ball of fire was the devil and the flames of hell. Later, some blamed the entire incident on two people who had been playing cards in the pew during the sermon, incurring God's wrath. Very interesting documented incident here. We have some sort of demonic entity, and you'll see that here later, smashing down this church. Interesting to say the least. Going on, we have another church that witnessed a great fiery ball. And it says here, this is the Tsar Nicholas II. Once my parents were away, I was at the all-night vigil with my grandfather in a church in Alexandria. During the service, there was a powerful thunderstorm. Streaks of lightning, thunder, peals of thunder, blah, 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 shake the church. Suddenly there came a dark blast of wind. Why would someone... Oh, quite a dark blast of wind from an open door, blew out the flame of the candles that were lit, and then there was a clap of thunder, and suddenly saw a fiery ball flying from the window straight towards the head of the emperor. The ball was of lightning, whirled around the floor, then past the chandelier and flew out the door into the park. My heart froze. I glanced at my grandfather. His face was completely calm. He crossed himself just as calmly as he had when the fiery ball had flown near us. So another church instance, interesting. Aleister Crowley, a famous Satanist, reported witnessing that what he referred to as globular electricity during a thunderstorm in a small cottage. And he wrote down that it was only this calm amazement, dazzling globe of electric fire between 6 and 12 inches in diameter, stationary about 6 inches below my right knee, blah, blah, blah. He looks at it and goes on from there. This one right here from R.C. Jennison talks about a glowing sphere more than 20 inches, 8 inches in diameter, this was an aircraft during an electrical storm, and it was from the pilot's window that this light was observed. So in the Bible, it talks about groves. It mentions it probably, I think, around 20-something, 24 or something times about destroying the groves. The grove is where they meet the fallen gods. It's also where they had set up idol worship, and the Lord is always talking about destroying the groves. What's interesting when you look at groves in the Bible, it's not really about trees and what we would think is a grove. It actually means sanctuary. It actually means Ashtaroth, which means star. Again, a lot of these balls of light are seen in the woods or in forests and in conjunction with other things or whatever, or just by themselves. But I thought it was interesting, or at least noteworthy, that Ashtaroth means star, and we go back to grove and it means this whole Ashtaroth deal here, this Canaanite goddess. So anyway, it's just thought it was noteworthy to mention. So you have these stars that are, essentially floating stars coming around, and, could this be something tied to an entity, which we'll get into later. So our enemy is not an idiot. What you find is that his deception goes very deep. We're easily fooled, especially when we jump on the bandwagon of what other people do and what they think and what they believe is right. We'll do the same thing. It goes along with this mask ordeal. Whatever your opinion is on it, that's fine. I have mine, you have yours. But everybody's doing it because they don't want to feel uncomfortable, it seems, with other people who are doing it. So, again, whatever your opinion is, that's fine. The Bible is clear about many deception that he executes. We have to be wise about these devices. In fact, the Bible even states the Lord's people are destroyed through lack of knowledge. This takes me to garden spheres. Immediately thought of this when I got on this topic. I used to think just how corny these garden spheres are. I'm like, what are these things? Why do people put them in their yard? It made no sense to me. And even before I was a Christian, I was like, why would you put this in your yard? What's the purpose? And it's these yard globes. You'll see them all the time in these people's yards. And it's a mirrored sphere displayed. You can put on a wrought iron stand or some sort of ornament. They come in all different shapes, all different sizes. But look what they call them. They call them, unlike hanging friendship balls or witch balls, You know, I mean, so it's obviously some sort of tie to the occult. And, you know, whatever your reason is for putting it in your yard, it looks nice. I mean, it's kind of, you know, I guess it could be attractive or whatever, or the reflection of it. Anyway, to me now, especially, it's got occult ties to it. I would never, you know, I would never put one in my yard for me. Anyway, switching gears for a second, there's these spheres within a sphere all around these places right here. If you look at all these blue locations, there's these different art sculptures called spheres within a sphere, and they're all over the place. And if you look at the places where they're located, Vatican, you know, Rome, let's see here, let's go through some of these. United Nations in New York, Christian Theological Seminary, Columbus Museum of Art, that's not really a bad one, Tehran Museum of Contemporary Art, Berkeley, California, Tel Aviv, Israel. I raise my eyebrows at this greatly. What do we have here? We have this guy who's making these bronze spheres they're cracked open with all kinds of stuff on the inside. Doesn't really get into what's on the inside. Well, I'll give you a quote here in just a minute of what this guy says about them. And actually, that's right now. So here's one right here. I think this is the Vatican one right here. But it says the sphere is a marvelous object from the world of magic. Wizards, whether it's of crystal or of bronze or full of water, it reflects everything around it, creating such contrast that it sometimes is transformed, becoming invisible, leaving only its interior, tormented and corroded, full of teeth. That's what drives me to make spheres, breaking these perfect magic forms in order to reveal, find, or discover its internal firmament. Mysterious and alive, monstrous and yet pure. So I create a discordant tension, a conflict with a polished shine of unity composed of incompleteness. In my sculpture, the shape of today's world contains within itself the form of the ideal city as conceived by the artist of the Italian Renaissance. This, in turn, contains my hopes and dreams and those of countless other citizens of the world. Kind of a weird quote. Interior tormented and corroded, full of teeth. Mysterious and alive, monstrous and yet pure. Times Square ball. Another one that I thought of. Why is a ball? You know, if I was going to devise some sort of time thing to signify a new year, I would make something maybe like this in a watch face, that as you dropped, you know, 1 minute elapses or whatever, and then it hits midnight and everyone celebrates. Why a ball? Why? Could it go back to Baal? Very close to ball. I don't know. But it just seems corny to me. A ball. The ball's going to drop. What's a ball? Why? Why not something different? Why not something with some meaning to it? So again, we have to be very careful about how we live our lives. And when we invite these kinds of things in, what are we inviting in? Many people see orbs and very few encountered are in a positive light. In Genesis 15, we have a strange picture of Abraham. I speak of this video in Satan's Ranch. I talk about that chapter a little bit more. It describes a wicked darkness that comes over Abraham, and he has a vision of this light. This light is worded in a unique way in the Hebrew. In the Bible, it's written as a burning lamp that comes. This burning lamp is Strong's word, es lapid. I believe I'm pronouncing that probably wrong, but that's what it is. The strange part is this light is described as not only as just a light, but it's supernatural, and that it has a company to a deity. So let's take a look at it. And it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp passed between those pieces. This burning lamp, fire hot, flaming hot fire, supernatural fire accompanying Theophany, fire, altar fire, God's anger. And then we have over here to shine, flambeau, lamp, flame, brand, torch, burning, firebrand. Theophany is the appearance of a deity. Supernatural fire accompanying an appearance of a deity. So just what kind of burning lamp was going through here? Another account that's noteworthy is the fiery serpents that were the Lord sent to Israel for their disobedience and complaining. Here's the concordance of those two words. Here's the verse right here. The Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and much of Israel was afflicted and died. Burning a copper color, fiery serpents burning, kindled, made utterly to burn. Poisonous serpent, snake, enchanter, magic spell, enchantment, observe, enchantment, divine enchanter, diligently observe, practice of divination, divine, observe, signs, learn by experience, diligently, omen. Is the fact that it's bronze? Up here it's copper. Copper's I think bronze is an alloy mostly made of copper. That's what it is. But here we have our bronze sphere. Could this be our fiery serpents? I bet there's a bunch of fiery serpents where these things sit. The UN is full of them. Evil entity, fiery serpents. Blue ball of fire presents itself to widows or the women grieving for a lost lover. Experience hallucination, supernatural torment. This is kind of a weird wiki entry. I think it's kind of goes back to a Russian and Scandinavian, not myth, but what was the word? I forget. Goes back to that history. It's been a long day. Anyway, thought that was interesting, and I thought this was interesting right here. Born with hooves instead of feet. Wasn't that one of those cryptids born with hooves? I think it was the not Mothman, but the Jersey Devil or something like that was. I don't know. But anyway, guys, this is just just information for you to look at. Now, there is a video I'm going to play here in a little bit that this guy is a prophet, man of God. I trust him, and I believe what he's saying is true. It rings to my spirit. And the Lord will give him an answer on what you see here, what these things are. And, and I think you'll be surprised at what he says. I'm also going to play a video from David Paulides with 2 instances involving bright light. And then I will let you, again, take this video and be the judge. Either use this information, or if you don't, that's fine too. It's there for you. So again, one of these videos will be from David Paulides, the other one from Ed Amos. Again, this video is for your information and make a judgment call. I hold no opinion or judgment on those who are lost or missing. Okay. I pray for them, and I know that the plan of God can be difficult to understand. Believe me, I know it can be very difficult to put your faith in God when someone you love has gone missing or killed, or, it's very easy to lose faith. I have a heartfelt conviction of those people who are missing. I know this book of Baruch, 2nd Baruch, says that all will return. My personal opinion is, after much study, that they will be a living testimony against the devices of the enemy. God has them, no matter what, and I believe that, and I have faith in that. Someday all our worries and all our questions will be answered, and this time here on earth will be nothing but a distant memory. May God be with you. This is my prayer, all right, for these lost and missing people. Father, you're in control of all things regardless of our understanding. Many times we're like Job. We're put through trials and tests, and yet we question your ways and we lose heart. Help us in these times, and please give us peace in our hearts when we want to reach for bitterness. I pray for the families of these missing persons. Only you, Lord, can give them closure. You can give them rest. You can give them faith. And you can give them what they need to sustain themselves. We have no idea what type of torment they go through without closure, and I'm sure it's greatly difficult for them to find joy. Please use what the enemy has done for wickedness, Lord, and use it for good. In your time, you will give us the answers and the unification with their families, that they may glorify your name. In Jesus' name, I pray this. Amen.
So another story. This is from a pizza delivery man. I had a job delivering pizza when I was younger. I was delivering to a nice lady, and then she was a regular on my route that I'd gotten to know after delivering frequently. She was a respectable mid-50s lady that worked at a local hospital as a registered nurse. As I turned onto a road that one night, which only has 4 houses and is about a half-mile long, I noticed someone standing in the road. I didn't think anything of it at first. As I came closer and to a full stop, I realized it was my customer wearing her nightgown. I got out of the car, and as I approached her with the delivery, I said, "How are you doing, Miss So-and-so?" She didn't respond. She didn't flinch, not anything. I then looked to the sky to see why she was looking up, and there was an orange glowing ball of light. I still didn't think much of it. I then said again, "Miss So-and-so, I have your pizza." Still no response. She seemed glued to this orange glow in the sky. I touched her on the arm to get her attention, and she literally shook when I touched her. She then looked at me with a terrified appearance and asked, "What is that?" as she pointed to the glowing round object. I then directed all of my attention to the ball of light. I listened and heard nothing. It was not moving. It appeared to pulse slightly dimmer and brighter. I observed it for roughly 15 seconds and then told her I have no idea what it is. She then told me she was sitting in her house and had noticed the light outside and figured it was me pulling up, so she went to the door. When she opened the door, she noticed no car, but that same ball of light was in the cleared lot across the street. She said she went outside to observe it, and as she was walking down her driveway to get a closer look, it shot up in the sky about 100 yards extremely fast. After hearing that, I then focused my attention back on it. I was mesmerized. I then got my 6D Maglite flashlight I used to find addresses at night and shined it on it, hopefully illuminating something. As soon as I turned it on, pointing it in the direction, it shot off like a bullet higher and higher and was out of sight in roughly 2 seconds. That terrified me, knowing that no drone or plane or helicopter would be able to do that in that amount of time. The day changed my life, and beliefs after I came home and started doing research to see what could have done this. The next time I delivered it to her, it was awkward. I asked if she had ever figured out what the light was, and the only thing she said was, "Let's not talk about that day. I've been trying to forget what happened." She was clearly upset. I told her I'm sorry. She said, "It's okay. I understand your curiosity. But as for me in my older age, I would rather not change things I believe." She didn't need to elaborate. I understood exactly what she was saying. Thanks for listening. So, something caused this lady to come out of her house in her nightgown, and she was focused on this, I'll call it an orb. So focused that she didn't move as a car was approaching her. A man comes in, puts a flashlight on it, and it takes off at an unbelievable speed. Right away, when I read that story, I was thinking about the Tic Tac UFO that the Navy pilots found off the coast of Mexico. And Colonel David Faber was the one who, I've talked about it. Now, this is a little different. Orbs of light have been seen in the forest hundreds and hundreds of times. I've read hundreds of reports about it. Now, what would have been interesting is to know that lady's last name. And I always am interested to know if somebody is of German descent. But I've written a lot of stories about people that were inside their homes, and suddenly friends came over and they were gone. And there was no rational explanation about how they left the house or where they went. I wrote a story about a young boy that was with his aunt in a house. Doors was locked, alarm was on, dog was with him inside, and they took a nap on the floor. Aunt was laying on the couch. She woke up in 15 minutes when her phone rang and the boy and the dog were gone. Never have been found. But there's many stories like this where people have disappeared inside their home, inside of a car even. So keep an open mind. Don't discount these things just because they make you uncomfortable. I realize that I'm speaking about things that many of you have never heard of. And many of the haters out there don't want me to discuss this, which makes me suspect. Are they uncomfortable with the topic, or are they maybe protecting something that they don't want us to know about? Keep that in mind. Okay, one more. Hi, David. I hope all is well with you. Down with the flu for a few days. Thought I'd share this with you. It's my story. Not sure if it's of interest to you, but wanted to type it out for the first time here. Still amazed with your body and work of analysis. Keep it up. My father was a pharmacist. He opened in a small pharmacy in Pickett County, Tennessee. When we moved to a small area called Byrdstown, he purchased a 120-acre farm off Highway 295, about 5 miles out of town. He created a large circular gravel driveway and placed a new mobile home on top of the hill, overlooking a farm. I came home from a friend's house and my mother begins telling me about seeing headlights in the field. She was sure someone had entered our property and was probably spotlighting deer. I took our truck and drove out into the rolling topography, but saw nothing. She described two beams of white, yellowish light directed up into the air. If you're on the side of one of these rolling hills, you could indeed shine spotlights at the sky as she described. A few weeks later, I'm at home and she sees them again. This time, instead of driving down to confront them, I grabbed a pair of binoculars and walked over the first hill. The lights weren't far, and I really wanted to sneak up on them. Figured they would hear my vehicle and tires on the gravel, and I was a teenage ninja in my own mind, with it all figured out. The only reason I think she didn't call the police was due to her not being sure what was actually happening. And there's a mistake. If you're not sure what's happening, call the police. And as I was one for 20 years, if I got a call like that, I'd think it was great. I'd be all over it. Don't think that the police are going to embarrass you or make a fool of you. I think there's a lot of them out there that think just like me. Back to the letter. Again, it was constant beams, not moving. Now, along the side of the circular driveway was a small parcel of land that someone had recently purchased and also moved in a modular home. The corner of the parcel would come very close to the same portion of our driveway, and there was an opening of a hedge or a fence, as this used to be a gap to reach this parcel, but was recently fenced. As I'm approaching that area of the driveway, I do indeed see two beams of light projecting into the sky. I didn't think anything too odd at this point, except I still hadn't heard the sounds of their vehicle. Also, the lights themselves struck me as if they had been reached further back into the black night, distance-wise, but I quickly told myself I'm not a scientist and I paid no more attention. They never moved. All of a sudden, the lights go out. I'm thinking, dang it. They see me somehow. I stood still as a rock for maybe 3 minutes, not making a sound. But they never made a sound either. I'm still a few hundred yards away. While trying not to creep myself out in this standoff, I all of a sudden hear activity from the neighbor's back porch area. Actually, I'm kind of thankful I hear someone else in the darkness at this point. It had one single bulb illuminating their wooden deck. I decided to go and investigate the noise as perhaps they were involved. However, once I reached the gap, it was still fenced. No possible ingress from here. Here's where I learned to sprint in complete darkness, gold medal style. As I begin to focus on the activity, it's clear it's a very benign scene. A woman was scraping a skillet off her back porch and calling for her dog. Upset, I may have lost the real trespassers. I started to turn around and head back in the direction of the lights. There was still no sound or movement from that direction. Then all of a sudden, this woman begins screaming to the top of her lungs and pointing approximately 45 degrees to my right in a more thickly wooded area. I immediately jumped into some kind of crouching position like a spastic cat and began vigorously scanning the scene. The woman is now screaming at the top of her lungs, "What is that? What is that?" She's pointing in the direction away from me and not towards the lights. Over and over, screaming continued. My map thing would be about 150 yards from me. She's 200 yards just north of me, and the lights would have been southwest of me, 250 yards, and my home is east of me, 150 yards. Did you copy all that? As this evolves, I think to take out binoculars and see what I can see. I'm frantically panning back and forth between her fingers' direction and the wooded area pointing to me. I see nothing. Now, two very important points rush through my mind. I'm thinking, what the hell scares a person that much, and where in the hell is it now? Literally, I'm beginning to be consumed with fear. In this mess, the husband has come out and looked at it for a nanosecond. He quickly retreats into the home and emerges with a firearm. I see him pointing the rifle at something, but he never fires. I stay just long enough to make sure he's not seeing me somehow, and then I took off and ran through the pitch black home. No defensive line could have slowed me down. I was that scared, and it even gave me cold chills writing about it right now. So the last part of the story. At some point the next day, the husband comes flying up our driveway in a very hatefully demanding attitude to see our bird dogs. My mother comes to the back door to intercept such an a-hole entrance. He is now looking all over for both of my dogs. Mother was asking, what is this all about, and threatening to call the police. Yeah, good idea. Here it comes, and more cold chills. He proceeds to tell us that something white had ripped his dog to shreds. He couldn't overstate this and repeat it enough. Something ripped and tore my dog to pieces. I kept waiting for him to describe the attack in normal terms. I mean, if he thought it was a dog, why didn't he say it clawed or bit? It was unnatural. He would not move away from that description. He was almost in tears. He said it ran off in the direction of our home. He was looking for signs in our German Shorthairs, but found none. For the record, our dogs didn't ramble at night. He apologized and told us about the scene and trouble and left. I seriously thought he had seen me and was coming to complain to my parents, but he never did. I told my mom what I saw out there that night, but I don't think it sank in, and this guy never showed up with his vision or version of events. There were a few other weird instances on this farm, but this one I'll never forget. Thanks. I did do a follow-up email with this man, and I asked him, said, just for clarity, you didn't see anything that you could identify, correct? And he writes, that's correct. Believe me, I was looking. The man described it as being white in color and believing a dog may have attacked his dogs. But what he saw must have been short in stature. The woman actually had the best visual. I mean, she must have screamed for several seconds. She had to get a good look at it, but I don't know what that look was. I should also say it was completely silent in the woods when I was there. There was never any sound of any dogs yelping, nothing. Dead silence. Okay. So we have an attack, we have lights in the woods, and nothing can be adequately described.
bless you and greetings to you in the wonderful name of our living Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, Yahushua HaMashiach, and God our Father, Yahuwah Elohim. I received this message on 4/9, and part of it was a dream, part of it was a word, the two flowing together. And I'm going to have a brief explanation. There's a part that in the dream, I didn't exactly write down what I saw, and then he brought it up to me a little bit later, so I'm going to try to explain what I saw a little more detail. So here goes. In the dream part, I was outside and I looked up and saw a bright circular light in the distance. And this is the part I'm trying to explain. It was a bright circular light, but it was coming out of a bright circular light. Now, whether that bright circular light was the sun or the moon or some other object in the sky, I'm not sure, but it was very bright. It was larger than this object. So it was like an object coming out of a bright circular light coming out of a bright circular light. So that's the explanation there. So anyway, we saw the bright circular light in the distance, and it began to come towards me. It was as bright as the sun, and it moved across the sky and began its descent towards me. Suddenly it was upon me, and I noticed it appeared to be made of some sort of metal as it came towards me and stayed as it came right next to me. It made no apparent sound and appeared to be 20 to 30 feet in diameter, but I couldn't be sure the exact size. Then the word of the Lord came to me and said, "Son of man, what do you see?" Then I replied, "I'm not real sure, Lord, but it appeared to be some sort of bright glowing orb, but I'm not used to seeing them except on YouTube, and those seem to be smaller." Then he says, "These orbs are containers, ships you might call them, used by my enemy and sometimes me. If you see one in real life, don't approach it or don't try to communicate with it unless I tell you to. They can be very dangerous. Some have fallen ones inside, and others are drones. In any case, stay away from them if at all possible. If they seem to follow you or harass you, rebuke it out loud in Jesus' name, Yahushua's name, until it flees from you. You can also pray to me and ask for me to send my warrior angels to come and assist you in getting rid of them from your presence. As things continue to accelerate, warn my people to not allow their natural curiosity to get the best of them. Do not try to communicate or channel with these orbs. I forbid it, says the Lord, unless I direct you to. They come in all sizes, colors, shapes. Avoid them all unless directed by me. Pardon me. The enemy will use these orbs to capture, abduct, and take you away. This is not the rapture of the church. When I send Yahushua back for his bride, he doesn't need to use orbs. He will ascend from the heavens to the clouds. The angel will blast out the shofar. My chosen ones shall hear it. Their bodies will change in the twinkling of an eye, and they shall rise up to meet Yahushua in the air. My angels will assist my bride during this transformation, not blowing orbs. I will place in my people's hearts, showing the difference at the appointed time. They will know the real angel sent by me. There will be no mistake or confusion, for I am not the author of confusion.